Nebraska and Iowa, the Cornhusker state and the Hawkeye state, two bordering Midwestern states in these United States that I am very familiar with. The mighty Missouri River, which is the longest river in North America, by the way, is the only thing that separates them. And good thing that river is there separating them, because there's a bit of a rivalry between the two. Both don't have as much in common as you'd think. Let's just knock those similarities out of the way first. First of all, both are on the prairie. Lots of grass. Both states lean to the right politically, although Nebraska a bit more. Agriculture is very important in both states, in particular livestock and corn.
You're not going through the corn, are you? Can't go no other way.
You know that vegetable that's an ingredient in the food you're eating right now? Sure, there's the University of Nebraska Cornhuskers, but Iowa produces more corn than any other state. Okay, Nebraska ranks number 3 in corn production. Both generally have clean air and water compared to most of the rest of the country. Oh, that's nice. But residents of both do have to deal with very cold winters and surprisingly hot summers. Both mostly have a humid continental climate with 4 distinct seasons. Thanks to the constant battle between winds from the north and south, the weather can quickly and dramatically change. One day it could be 30 degrees Fahrenheit out, the next day 70 degrees. Or you might be walking in the sunshine one moment and the next you're in a giant thunderstorm. Both have similar natural disasters, with the biggest ones being tornadoes, yes, thunderstorms, and flooding. Excluding Omaha and Lincoln in Nebraska and Des Moines in Iowa, both are not exactly known for their ethnic diversity. A lot of people in both trace their ancestry to Europe. The biggest religion in both is Christianity. Specifically, most Christians in both identify as Protestant. Similar to other Midwestern states, the rural and small town population in both states has been quickly declining. Both spend about the same amount each year per student on education. Both have a higher percentage of college-educated citizens than the national average. Both are landlocked and far from the ocean, but Nebraska is the only triple landlocked state in the country, meaning Nebraskans must travel through 3 states to get to an ocean. Both border 6 states. Both have absolutely no professional sports teams, but according to Wikipedia, quote, the state of Iowa has 1 professional sports team in which they lead the nation. Cuddling. Yeah, someone might want to edit that. So how about all those differences between the two states? Well, first of all, Nebraska is about 27% bigger in land area. Oh yeah? Well, Iowa has more people, and because of that, a higher population density. Heck, there are parts of Nebraska where hardly anybody lives, like in the beautiful Sandhills region, which makes up 1/4 of the entire state. I've been there, and if you want to get away from, like, everybody, that's the place to go. Iowa's population is more spread out. Most of Nebraska's population lives in the eastern portion of the state. Despite Iowa having more people, its biggest city, Des Moines, is smaller than Nebraska's second biggest city, Lincoln. Okay, but that's not based on metropolitan area numbers. Shame on me for that. Des Moines has a metro population more than double that of Lincoln, okay? Oh yeah? Well, Omaha, Nebraska's metro population is over 1 million people. Oh yeah? Well, its metro includes Council Bluffs, Iowa, so there. Anyway, I used to live in Omaha, and it's an incredibly underrated city. So is Des Moines, come to think of it. Overall, Iowa residents pay more in taxes. However, the cost of living is overall higher in Nebraska. That all said, housing is much cheaper in both compared to most of the rest of the country. Nebraska has a lower poverty rate. The median household income is also higher there, but Iowa has a lower overall crime rate. Nebraska has a higher minimum wage. Iowa gets more precipitation, man. Nebraska's precipitation dramatically goes down the further west you go in the state. So while eastern Nebraska is all green in the summer with more trees, western Nebraska is Not. And has hardly any trees at all. In fact, most of the Nebraska Panhandle, or this section of the state, has a semi-arid climate. Why is it so dry out here? Well, because of the rain shadow created by the Rocky Mountains. Rocky Mountains, I say? What on earth? Well, here's something to put into perspective how big Nebraska is. It takes 6.5 hours to drive from Omaha to Scottsbluff, Nebraska, but only 3 hours to drive from Scottsbluff to Denver, Colorado. Western Nebraska is even in the mountain time zone for real. Most of Nebraska is in the Great Plains, and when Americans first arrived to settle it, there were barely any trees. Iowa at least had some trees. Oh yeah, let's get into some history. Both have been settled by humans for thousands of years. Some were nomadic, others were sedentary. By the time Europeans got to the area in the 1500s and 1600s, prominent American Indian tribes in modern-day Nebraska included the Cheyenne, Pawnee, Lakota, Omaha, Oto, and Ponca. Prominent American Indian tribes in modern-day Iowa included also the Oto, but additionally the Missouri, Dakota Sioux, Illinois, and Iowa. No way. Yes way. That's where Iowa gets its name from. Nebraska is named after the Oto Indian word Nebraska, which means, quote, flat water, in reference to the Platte River, which runs through the state. The first Europeans to make contact with American Indians in modern-day Iowa were apparently the French explorers Louis Joliet and Pierre-Jacques Marquette. They encountered the Illinois just west of the Mississippi River in 1673. Naturally, the French claimed the land, but rarely came back. The French were also the first Europeans to check out modern-day Nebraska, but that wasn't until the 1700s. In 1714, Etienne de Bourgmont and his crew checked it out for the first time. The only thing the French did after that in modern-day Iowa and Nebraska was some trading along the rivers. They established only 2 permanent trading posts in modern-day Nebraska, and nothing, as far as I can tell, in modern-day Iowa. When Spain briefly controlled modern-day Iowa, it did offer some land grants to protect mining around modern-day Dubuque. Flash forward to 1803, and the United States now controlled the area. In 1808, it built Fort Madison in modern-day Iowa. In the War of 1812, the area was part of Missouri Territory. During that war, in 1813, British allied American Indians led by the Sauk leader Black Hawk took it over. However, after that war ended, time and time again, the United States government pushed American Indians further and further west in modern-day Iowa, clearing the way for American settlement in the 1830s. By that time, the area was part of Michigan Territory, and then Wisconsin Territory, and then Iowa Territory. Whoa, impressive. Meanwhile, American missionaries had moved out to modern-day Nebraska. In 1842, a dude who later was a senator and ran for president named John C. Fremont explored the Platte River with another famous dude named Kit Carson. The city of Fremont, Nebraska was named after him. For decades, Americans traveled through future Nebraska, but rarely stopped there. The main way they traveled through it? The famous Oregon Trail, of course. Iowa became a state first. By 1846, enough folks lived there to make it so, and afterward, settlement quickly grew. By 1851, nearly all American Indian nations had been pressured to move out by the American government. Most of the new settlers farmed, of course, and settled near the rivers that led to the Mississippi River to ship their farming goods. Many American Indian nations still remained, however, in what would become Nebraska Territory. Whoa, that's pretty big. After the American government created it in 1854, they created Nebraska Territory with one of the worst laws ever passed, the Kansas-Nebraska Act. In addition to creating the territories of Kansas and Nebraska and opening them for settlement, it allowed the new settlers there to determine whether they would be admitted to the Union as a free state or slave state. This predictably caused a mad rush of pro-slavery and anti-slavery advocates to live out there, but most of them chose to live in Kansas Kansas Territory, things were much more chill in Nebraska even after the American Civil War broke out in 1861. Things were also pretty chill in Iowa during the war, although more than 75,000 soldiers from Iowa enlisted. Nebraska became a state in 1867. For the rest of the century, the population of both states exploded due to so many migrants and immigrants moving there to get either cheap or even free land to farm. The railroads had a dramatic impact on the development of both states. Railroad grants were free land given to the railroad companies so they could build railroads and sell off the land where settlers came to settle. However, many people didn't like these deals because they thought the railroad industry was ripping off settlers. In the late 1880s and early 1890s, Nebraska farmers in particular faced difficult times when droughts caused crop failures, and many of them lost their farms due to not being able to pay off debts. This, combined with reaction to railroad company monopolies, helped lead to the populist movement. Populist hero James B. Weaver came from Iowa, but the movement was even bigger in Nebraska. In fact, Omaha was the home of the convention that created the Populist Party in 1892. But who was their presidential candidate that year? James B. Weaver, of course. By the early 1900s, prosperity mostly returned to both states, and both continued to grow. Beginning in the 1920s, farmers in both states struggled again, but more so in Nebraska. The Dust Bowl, which happened in the 1930s due to little rain, hot days, and high soil erosion, also devastated Nebraska much more than Iowa. The Nebraska farmers who survived adapted to harsh conditions through more efficient irrigation, contour farming, and planting millions of trees to hold the soil in the ground to keep it from eroding and blowing away. Today, while both states are still known for farming, Iowa is actually more rural. Other than agriculture, major industries in Iowa include food processing, machinery, and healthcare. Other major industries in Nebraska include financial services, transportation, and insurance. According to both CNBC and Forbes magazine, Nebraska is a much better state for business. The median age is higher in Iowa. Nebraska has more cows. Iowa has more pigs. In fact, I was surprised to learn that Iowa has like way more pigs than any other state in the country. Pigs outnumber humans there 4-1. Iowa also leads the country in egg production and is number 2 in soybean production. Dang, Iowa. Impressive. But Nebraska has more impressive rivers. The big one is the aforementioned Platte River. Sure, Iowa gets the mighty Mississippi as its border with Illinois to the east, but the only somewhat bigger river in the state is just a tributary of the Mississippi called the Des Moines River. I still can't get over how Nebraska has more miles of rivers than any other state in the country. Nebraska has the Nebraska National Forest, located in the northwestern part of the state.
Wait, what? Didn't you say earlier that western Nebraska was really dry and had hardly any trees?
Why, I did, Squirrel. Great job paying attention there. You're gonna ace the test over this video.
Wait, test? There's a test?
But yeah, the Nebraska National Forest is actually the country's largest human-created forest, located in the Sand Hills. This is what it would have looked like before those trees were planted, but the legendary botanist Charles Bessey had the crazy idea to plant thousands of trees. Today, the forests look like they've been there forever, and it's federally protected land. Every 4 years, Iowa gets a lot of attention from political junkies around the country, since it is the home of the first caucuses that vote on who will be the presidential nominees for both of the major political parties. It is commonly believed that whoever wins those caucuses starts the presidential primary season with a lot of momentum, and for that reason, Iowans regularly get opportunities to meet presidential candidates in intimate locations too. Back in 2020, right before the world ended, JJ McCullough and I were in Iowa right before the caucuses and got to experience some of that excitement firsthand. Hey, check out our videos about it if you want to and stuff. Nebraska is the only state in the country with a unicameral state legislature, meaning instead of having a House and a Senate like the United States Congress, it just has one governing body in its legislative branch. Nebraska is also one of only 2 states that splits up its electoral votes, which I think is pretty groovy. It's called the congressional district method since it awards 2 electors electoral votes to the state popular vote winner and divides up the rest to the popular vote winner in each of its 3 congressional districts. This has led to multiple split electoral votes there, most recently in 2020. Biden won Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, which, no surprise, is basically Omaha and its suburbs. Other things I'm supposed to mention about Nebraska, based on my comment section from my Kansas-Nebraska video, is that Edwin Perkins invented Kool-Aid in Hastings, Nebraska, and more than 500,000 sandhill cranes, or around 80% of the world's crane population, stop by one 80-mile stretch of land in Nebraska every March on their annual spring migration. Oh, and on Saturdays in the fall, Memorial Stadium in Lincoln, Nebraska is the equivalent of the 3rd most populated city in this state. Other random cool things about Iowa, there's this cool town called Pella there. Dutch immigrants founded it in 1847, and the town has since preserved much of its Dutch heritage. But there's also Elkhorn, Iowa, which is known for its Danish heritage. And check out that windmill. And since 1900, the city of Britt, Iowa has been hosting the National Hobo Convention, which is something I never realized I really wanted to attend until researching it for this video. And finally, there's a nice little college football rivalry between the University of Iowa's team and University of Nebraska's team. The Hawkeyes have dominated it in recent years, but don't forget that the Cornhuskers have historically had one of the most prestigious programs in college football history.
Mr. Beat, the Nebraska-Oklahoma football rivalry was a much bigger deal.
Go away, squirrel. Are you having trouble sleeping, or do you feel tired all the time because your sleep quality isn't good enough? Well, check this out. This video is sponsored in part by Endel. Endel is an environment-based nonprofit app that takes everything we know about sound and combines it with cutting-edge technology. The result is real-time, personalized soundscapes designed to help you sleep. Endel's patented core technology, Endel Pacific, adapts in real time to personal inputs like location, weather, and heart rate. Endel complements your circadian rhythms to not only help you get into a deep sleep, but improve how you feel all day long. I've kind of been obsessed with my sleep lately, and I've been using Endel to not only help me fall asleep at night, but also to evaluate the quality of my sleep. You should try it out. Click the special link in the description of this video. The first 100 people to download Endel get 1 week free of audio experiences. So which is better, Nebraska or Iowa? I'm kind of biased towards Nebraska since I absolutely loved living in Omaha for a few years, but let me know.
I like Iowa too, okay?
And there it is, the first repeat. I already made another video comparing Nebraska to Kansas, but I didn't know what to compare Iowa to. So I asked you, and most of you said I should compare it to Nebraska, so we did it. And there will be other repeats.
For your future planning purposes.
I plan on videos comparing Maryland and Virginia, Oklahoma and Texas, and the Upper Peninsula and Lower Peninsula of Michigan. So call your mother and your father and your sister and your brother and your grandparents and your aunts and uncles and cousins and second cousins and best friends and acquaintances and even work acquaintances to let them all know, okay?